I've been lied to. Okay, where do I even start? I am going to be really honest with you. I'm starting to recognize how incredibly desperate I am to believe that what people say, like what comes out of their mouth directly, is actually indicative of their lived experiences, right? Like maybe they're not telling me everything about whatever story they're trying to feed me, but they're giving me an explanation that rings true to them. Okay? This is sort of what I believe about people, maybe because that's sort of how I am, right? But then when I find out that all of these people are just making shit up left and right and center and over here and over there in their entire lives, it's nothing less than shocking for me. And I'm struggling with it. Okay, so we all know that the newest deal is that Gypsy Rose, she came out on her social media and let everyone know that she's separating from Ryan. They've only been together for a couple months now. They got married while she was in prison, and there's a lot going down with all of that. I'm going to share some of it with you now, but stick around because I really want to get into the crux of what I want to expose here. And it has to do with Christy Blanchard and all of these big TV contracts and everything that's going on behind the scenes.
That's what I'm looking forward to. And then we'll get in my car and drive home. And I actually plan to take off work for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just to get her fully adjusted. You know, we got things we got to do. We got to see her parole officer. We got to get her an ID, Louisiana ID.
Okay. Well, Ryan really made that commitment by taking off 2 or 3 weeks from work. I have so much to say. First and foremost, for those of you who aren't aware, because it came out in one of my earlier videos, Ryan works as a teacher. I mean, many people have put that out there, but from what I've looked into, I believe that it's not like a real teaching certificate license. It's actually like he's a teacher's aide in the classroom. He works with special needs kids. He does like teacher's aide work, but not officially licensed as a teacher. And what happened, allegedly, according to people who worked with Ryan at the school last year before Gypsy was released, is that Ryan was constantly talking about Gypsy, and many people felt that it was inappropriate.
Gypsy Rose is a goddamn liar. Ryan Anderson allegedly lost his teaching license, and it may not be Gypsy Rose Blanchard's fault, but mother, husband, brother over here lost his license for a reason. As a matter of fact, they're saying it didn't exist at all.
He was bringing up that he was married to this murderer in a school with young kids with special needs. Now, the people who worked with him said that it was being brought up in front of kids. I can't confirm any of this. This is just what these people are putting out there. And many of them said they felt uncomfortable around Ryan. It was just inappropriate and weird. He ended up leaving that school and moving on to a new school this year before Gypsy was released. So he was working up until December when he went to go get her and brought her back home to Louisiana. My understanding is that he's no longer working at this point in time. He had dedicated his time to filming with Gypsy. Shortly after they arrived home, Gypsy began filming a reality show.
Gypsy Rose and her husband are getting a divorce, and the reasons why will surprise you. Can't say that we all didn't see this coming, but a part of me was rooting for them. Now, this divorce comes only 3 months after Gypsy Rose's release. When you think about it, this is a girl that lived as a prisoner her whole entire life and then went to prison for 11 years. She has never known a real life, and she's never had a real relationship, so to be thrust into the spotlight, become an overnight celebrity after a lifetime of being locked up, and then get just as quickly canceled by social media, I think that can take take its toll on any person in any relationship. News of the divorce comes from her private Facebook page, and she writes, "People have been asking what is going on in my life. Unfortunately, my husband and I are going through a separation, and I moved in with my parents' home down the bayou. I have the support of my family and friends to help guide me through this. I'm learning to listen to my heart. Right now, I need time to let myself find who I am," she wrote in a statement obtained by people from her private Facebook account. And maybe I'm stirring the pot, but part of me also thinks this has something to do with her other ex-fiance. Anyway, who else is with me when I say Gypsy Rose for the next Bachelorette?
All right, I'm not with her on that, but here's the thing. Here's the crux of all of it. I'm over here going, oh wow, they're getting divorced. Everybody kind of knew that was going to happen, that was coming due to the fact that she jumped into this marriage while she was still in prison and hadn't really experienced anything of living outside of a prison-like structure her entire life. We get all of that. And yet, as I reviewed a lot of footage from several channels who have been speaking to Christy Blanchard, who is heavily involved in social media. You guys have no idea what Christy does behind the scenes. The fact that she reaches out and contacts all of these crazy YouTubers. She'll leave comments. She's left comments on my page before, but she gets very involved with these people. And I personally don't have anything against Christy. I really believe there's a lot going on there, but she never abused Gypsy Rose. She raised two very well-adjusted children, and she didn't ask for all of this to happen to Gypsy and Gypsy's mom, Dee Dee. She's probably trying to deal with it as best as she can, and yet her behavior in getting extremely involved with out-of-control, social media people is pretty astounding, all right? And I'm going to be showing some of that to you now. Okay, in order to fully understand what Christy Blanchard has been doing behind the scenes, let's take a look at a video I did a while ago about a YouTuber and social media maven on Facebook. Her name is Fancy Macelli. We need to know what happened to Fancy in order to understand that that is being repeated across the board with many other YouTubers, social media creators, and influencers, and it's all being done with Christy.
It's Fancy, and you're watching the Good Wives Network.
I'm not perfect, just real. And I'm just truthful. And I just have all the facts and evidence that anyone could possibly want.
Okay, so this is Fancy Macelli. She is a wannabe kind of actress, writer, producer, and she approached Christy Blanchard shortly after the HBO special came out about Gypsy and kind of sold herself to Christy as I can help you. I can be someone who helps you get into Hollywood, get a show, get a book deal. I can be sort of a manager type person for you, for the good and the bad of it. I'm not saying that she clearly does have a background in Hollywood. She used to live in California, and she's been on shows like The Newlywed Couple. You can check her out at the Good Wives Network, but this is Fancy Macelli, and she had a really interesting and crazy relationship with Christy Blanchard. This is just the start of what's going on with Christy. Fancy and her crew used to work closely with Christy Blanchard and Gypsy, but had a majorly explosive falling out involving stalking, Facebook groups about cookie parties, alleged affairs, lies, and manipulations. This story has become an important side note in understanding the entire case of Gypsy Rose and the ongoing legal battles of Nicholas Godejohn, at which point she joined several Gypsy Rose Facebook groups about the case. There, she met Christy Blanchard, Gypsy's stepmother, and she convinced the family to use her as a spokesperson and potentially a manager for everything involving Gypsy's contracts and social media. But then, a series of events led to a major falling out amongst the family and Fancy. Fancy states that she swiftly lost all faith and respect for Gypsy, and she makes claims that Christy Blanchard began stalking her online, using fellow members of Facebook groups to harass her.
So this comment is from a mom. 100% true. So we tried to do, I think it was a documentary or a TV show or something with her, but she was very unprofessional. So we cut ties, didn't want anything to do with her. Didn't want to make the show or the documentary, whatever it was. I don't remember really. Once we did that, she went on a rampage of saying my mom's worse than Dee Dee when me and my brother completely turned out normal. Saying a whole bunch of stuff, that Gypsy was gonna murder me on my wedding day because she's jealous of me. I have a screenshot of something that she said too. Let me pull that up. Here it is. I'm so sick of Gypsy. Like, honestly, I just want to bury her so far down a rabbit hole, and I honestly think if I dig enough, I can make her look so fucking bad. So, like, she's putting out articles and stuff, calling herself a family friend, saying a bunch of stuff that is not true. I have her mugshots as well. If y'all want to believe her, go right ahead, but I'm just here to clear up.
Okay, so that was Mia, Christy Blanchard's daughter, who is Gypsy Rose's stepsister, right? Now, Mia has created quite a social media following, and it may have a lot to do with the fact that she's the sister of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. She makes money and gets brand deals from stuff like that, I'm assuming. I mean, that's what most people do. So it certainly has behooved her to claim her sister, to make it public, and to go on social media and have these accounts. We all know that even though it's likely hard to have Gypsy Rose and this whole situation as a part of your life, right? As a stepmom, even though it's probably hard to deal with that, I'm sure there's been some financial gain by Gypsy's stepmom, father, and stepsister. And now we're hearing that there's going to be a show about all of them. So Fancy Macelli is someone who is extremely critical of all of this. She believes that Christy and other people in that family are just trying to take advantage of Gypsy, and she's put that out all over social media. Meanwhile, Christy is fighting back, and she does this by befriending so many other creators. She's even friends with Katie Joy Paulson and texts and messages her at times. She's also friends with someone named Brandy. I'm going to link her channel below. Her channel's name is Uncorked with Brandy, and I think that Brandy tends to be one of the most neutral creators when it comes to covering Gypsy. But anyway, let's go on and hear about how crazy Christy Blanchard's shenanigans were with Fancy Macelli.
Regardless of the reason, the relationship between Fancy and the Blanchards had soured, and the result was ugly, you guys. Fancy makes claims of horrible bullying online. You'll have to go to the Good Wives Network to see all of it, but suffice it to say, people started making entire Facebook groups to make fun of Fancy's lady parts.
Hey guys, I'm Fancy and you're watching the Good Wives Network, and I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. If you are one of the people who participated in any of the bullying, stalking, defaming, frauding, any of that for the last 7 years.
So Fancy Macelli really faults Christy Blanchard specifically, and also a woman named Natasha. And you can find all of this on the Good Wives Network. It's covered extensively there. And, you know, Fancy had a lot to say about these horrible interactions she ended up having with Christy. She considered Christy a really close friend. And in the end, Christy divulged information to a lot of people on social media that allowed them to really do horrible things to Fancy. And, you know, Fancy alleges it was a really horrible stalking situation. Fancy goes on to make friends with new creators, to befriend other people and start working with them. Okay, so we've gone over all of that if you've been on my channel for a while, but here's where things get new and really crazy, okay? Fancy's had this falling out with the Blanchards. She's fighting with all these other social media people who are still friendly with the Blanchards, and she ends up finding this woman on TikTok, on social media, who has a strong social media following, and her name is Ryan. Not related to Ryan Anderson, who Gypsy is divorcing. This is another Ryan. This is the female Ryan who befriends Fancy, and they end up kind of like going into business together for a short period of time, going on each other's TikToks and YouTubes and making all kinds of crazy ass videos in which Ryan is really calling Gypsy out. So is Fancy. They're shitting all over Gypsy, Christy Blanchard, and the entire Blanchard family. Let's take a listen.
But everything really hit a sore spot for me when Fancy's new team member acted out her version of Dee Dee's murder on TikTok. Ryan is new to Fancy's team, and it's clear she's trying really hard to be a productive member. She is very pro getting Nicholas Godejohn a new trial, which is something I'm very interested in as well. But Ryan and Fancy Drew have taken this to an extreme by putting out theories that Nick wasn't involved and Gypsy committed the schmurder all on her own.
And she tried that night, but hear me out. 13 little tiny jabs, and she tried. And you hear from down here as they're going on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't hurt me, Gypsy! 5, 6. No, don't! 7, 8, 9. Don't, Gypsy! 10, 11, 12, 13. She climbs off. As she climbs off, she holds to her mother. She's actually regretful now. Mom, I didn't know what to do, Mom. I'm sorry. Gypsy, I'm not dead yet. You don't have to do this, Gypsy. Gypsy leaves the room. She gets a hold of Nick at 10 o'clock. And from 10 o'clock until he gets there, her blood slows. She goes down. And when Nick gets there, he finishes the blood spatter is not where it should be because she has started to go away.
I'm so sorry, I have to take a minute.
This reenactment caught a lot of people by surprise, and there was a lot of criticism lobbied towards Fancy and the Good Wives Network. Seemingly, things started to unravel and become even more unhinged on all of Fancy's social media platforms.
So at first, Ryan and Fancy stood beside each other. For a period of a couple of weeks, they supported one another and stood beside each other in their decision to reenact this schmurder, how they saw it happening without, really having any backup from law enforcement. But this was their reenactment. They stood beside each other. But within a couple of weeks, they had a major falling out. It was all over social media. People split in half their fan base. Some of them went to Fancy's channel, others went to Ryan's, and some left entirely. Now, this is all kind of expected in the drama community, in the commentary community on YouTube and TikTok. It happens all the time, and there's a lot of infighting amongst everyone. So I'm not just singling out Fancy and Ryan. This happens, okay? Positives and negatives all around here, right? But the thing that really shocks me, the thing that doesn't usually happen, that has really kind of thrown me off, is the fact that once Ryan separated from Fancy, guess what happened? Christy Blanchard, the stepmother of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, showed up on Ryan's small TikTok account and started chatting with her, commenting, chatting during the lives, and eventually they became very friendly. And that was also all over social media because everyone in Ryan's lives could see that Christy was there and they were talking to her and they liked having her there. So now some of the people who were supporting Fancy, they may have moved over to Ryan or vice versa. But whatever the case, it brought more viewership to Ryan. And since then, Ryan has alleged that she has created a close relationship with Christy. Ryan says she's even going to go visit her in Louisiana. She's been invited to stay with them at their house. Like, it makes my head explode. What is Christy Blanchard doing? And who is winning and who is losing in this drama game that Christy is playing? Well, I don't think it's very good for Gypsy Rose Blanchard. You know, I really feel like a lot of the negativity I feel towards Gypsy might be based upon some of what Christy has been up to, fucking around with these YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook channels. Okay, getting to the lie of it all, this is what I want to share with you. I'm developing a lot of questions about why the relationship with Ryan Anderson even took place. What is Gypsy and Christy and all of these networks, like, what are they up to? What are they using all of these people for? Is it all about money, fame, fortune? I'm uncovering a lot of things down a deep, sad rabbit hole, and I hope that you'll join me again in a few days when I put out some additional information about what's been going on behind the scenes with Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Hope to see you guys again. Have a great Easter.